This demonstration is for my Illustrator classes. It's taking a line, or a path actually, and using that path as a starting point, like a gestural line, to create limbs. So you might use it actually for creating an entire character, but we're going to focus here on creating a leg. But you could do the same thing with an arm, and you could even use it for the torso. But I think it works well for legs, or for like a tail on an animal, for instance, something like that. Some kind of like extremity. In life drawing classes, I'll oftentimes start by doing very quick poses, which are usually referred to as gestural drawings. And basically what you're putting down is the position of the leg, or the position of the spine in relationship to the legs, position of the hips, and so on. You don't have time. They're usually very fast. They could be as short as 30 seconds. And you just got to basically position where the figure is. So we're starting off with a line kind of like that. This line here I've drawn with the pen tool, and I'm drawing it basically by clicking and dragging. This gives me that curve position. Let me put this back to a 1-point stroke for right now so you can see better what we're doing. So I've got this curve created. Then carrying on from there, I'm going to curve it in the opposite direction for the bottom part of the leg, click back on that point, and then curve here. Let me do that one more time. So I click and drag, click to change direction, click and drag to create the curve, click to change direction, click and drag to create the foot. And then this can have no fill, just a stroke. So let's move all of this stuff out of the way for a second and just stick to that one path that we just created. So now we've got the position of the leg. Obviously once you've drawn it, if you want to, you could always change this angle by adjusting with the direct selection tool the position of points or the position of handles to fine tune it until you're happy with the position of the leg. Once you're happy with it, we can then, with that whole object selected, let's increase the stroke width. So now I have a stroke width like this. In the stroke panel, you'll notice that we have caps rounded and corners rounded. So this is up to you. You don't necessarily have to do this. In fact, you might not want to. But I'm going to start off with these being rounded. And then I'm going to manipulate the shape further. So one option we have is the width tool, which we've looked at previously in the course. If I drag out here, I can make this part of the leg thicker, for instance. I could also drag in here to make it thinner. Remember that if you hold Option with the width tool, you can drag one side out whilst leaving the other one intact. So instead of it having to go symmetrically, you can go asymmetrically. So I can pull this side out a little bit further and pull this side in a little bit. And then down here at the bottom, I might want to pull this part out and then pull this bit back in again. So now I think you can start to see the shape of the leg starting to take place. Down at the bottom here, maybe I want to bring this in slightly, so it's not quite as thick at the bottom. Maybe this part of the foot actually wants to be a little bit thicker. So now I've got to this point. I've got pretty close to the shape of the leg that I want, but I'm going to go to Object, Expand Appearance. And then you'll notice that when I expand the appearance, there's an awful lot of anchor points associated with this object. So let's clean that up a little bit by going to Object, Path, and then choose Simplify. The default position here works pretty well. I can adjust how much I want to simplify it by changing this angle here. And I'm going to be happy with that. Once I've simplified it, it'll make it easier for me to manipulate the shape, because here, for instance, if I want to move this point, if I have 30 points here, it becomes quite difficult for me to change the shape. And we only really need a point wherever there is a change in direction. So I'm taking points away as a way to manipulate the shape, or moving points, or adding points. So remember that when you're on the pen tool, you can do a lot of this manipulation from this point. For instance, if I click here, I add a point because I'm putting my cursor over a selected path. Then, if I hold Command, I get the direct selection tool and I can move that point to a different position. I can add another point here and then take this point away by putting my cursor over a selected path. The pen tool becomes the minus anchor points tool. Here, maybe I want to readjust the position of the handle, so if I select it, holding command, I have the direct selection tool again, and I can manipulate the shape of the path that way. If we look at this in outline mode, you'll notice that at these corners there's an overlap. I don't want those, so let's select over the shape and in Pathfinder do Unite. Now that's just one shape. Now we've got to this point, I'm happy with the shape of the foot. Maybe I'll do a couple more fine adjustments down here at the bottom, so I'm going to move this point up a little bit. Let's move this one out a little bit. Let's add a point in here somewhere and bring this down. So we're changing the shape. Maybe you select this whole section right here and scale it just a little bit. So if I scale it, say 99%, and then do Command D, we can scale the foot until we're happy with the position of that. So there's a variety of different ways that we can adjust the shape. Also hidden with the pencil tool, you have the smooth tool, which will allow you to go across a point and smooth out positions. So this can be very useful as well for just cleaning up artwork. Another tool you can use is the pencil tool itself. If you start close to a path, remember, and you draw, and you end close to the path, it will redraw that path. It's not creating a new path, it's redrawing the existing path. So there's some ways that we can manipulate the shape to what we want. Once I've got to this point, if I choose the default colors again, you can see that we can put a stroke around the outside of this filled object now, and we could start the process over again. And what I mean by that is that we could use the width tool and take parts of this stroke and make it wider, make parts of it, make it thinner. So for instance here, if I set this back to basically where it was, and then this one I'm going to make a little bit thinner, this part I can make a little bit wider. So now we have these thicks and thins. That's a little bit too much. Now we have these nice thicks and thins going on here. I'm going to keep this one pretty narrow and then have this one extend out thicker. Again, you can hold Option if you just want to go in one direction. So we can add thicks and thins that way. The other thing is that now that we've got this stroke on here, let's add the fill color that we want to use. And then if I wanted to, at this point, the other thing that I could do is I could outline this stroke. So just like we did with the object itself, I can expand the appearance. Now this stroke is a filled object, so I can manipulate it even further. Again, I might want to simplify it. Path. I'm going to simplify, make this a more simple object. Doesn't seem to be manipulating it. Maybe I didn't have it selected properly. Let's try that again. So I'll select the stroke area, object, path, simplify. There we go, that's better. And then let's keep that up around there. Okay. Now what we can do is we can go in here and we can manipulate individual points. So for instance, right here, I could add a point right here, and then I'm going to drag this one out. So this creates a little bit of an overlap. Sometimes in that position, actually, you automatically, because I've done this demonstration a lot, you automatically end up with the points you need. In that one case, I didn't. Here, though, if I select this, there's an anchor point there that I don't really need, so I can remove that. But before I move it, I'm going to add a point up here. So that way the shape feels more smooth. I'm going to add a point here, and I'm going to add a point between those 2 points, right there. Then we'll pull this one down. And then I can remove that one. Pull this back out again. So I added another point back in actually, and added it back. Let's bring this back up slightly. So we just want a little bit of an overlap there. But this kind of helps to make it feel like that. Helps to make that feel like that shape right there slightly overlaps, and so by doing that you give the sense that this is three-dimensional. Gives you more of a sense of a three-dimensional form by having this little overlap here this little overlap there. The other thing we could do to create a sense of form is to add shadows. So for instance, we could draw a shape which goes something like this. So you've got to first of all decide where your light is coming from. So my light's coming from the top left hand corner now. And I'm going to add some shadow underneath, oh sorry, over the top I should say, of all of this area. And you can go outside of it. I'm going to choose this color, and then I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply. You can see that these areas where I've drawn along the stroke, it just disappears. This area where it overlaps, we can always just select with the shape builder tool. With both of those shapes selected, option click on this bit to remove it. So I'm not quite sure why it's taken out all of that. It should be just, there we go. And then we have that shading here, and then we might also have additional shading. So if I select this again, that comes like around here, and here, maybe under the ankle, helps define that, and then down the bottom of the foot, like something along these lines. And then again, let's change the blending mode up here so that it's set to multiply. Then let's select over this. Then let's use the shape builder and hold option and click to remove that part. So you can see I would want to go in and adjust that shadow a little bit, but that's the basic approach to how you apply it. So now what I can do is I can select this, and with the rotate tool, if I click on the hip joint, I can rotate it from that position. And then that's it for this video. We've got a couple of legs.